Everybody, Elizabeth Nader back with you tonight, the Nader Narrative, bringing you all of our great candidates at every level in New Jersey for this fall election. Tonight is no different. Dave Herrera, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody, Dave is running for City Council in East Brunswick, as you can see. So tonight we want you to get to know him, the reason he's running, his background, his why, his passion, and also have you share this because it's the best way for people in his district to understand what their real choice is when it comes to City Council. And remember, everybody, politics is local. It all begins local. And if we don't make good decisions at this level and Board of Education, all of our problems really start there. So Dave, let's get everybody up to speed on who you are, your background, and the passion behind why you decided to run.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of you and the show and your husband as well. And you guys are great. So this is really an awesome opportunity to be here. Again, my name is Dave Herrera. For those of you that don't know, I am running for town council here in East Brunswick. I've been a resident for the last 21 years. So I've grown up in this town. I went to middle school, high school, got my first job here. This town means something to me that I am not actually able to put on paper because it's just a feeling that I have. I'm a small business owner. I own a restaurant in South Plainfield. You've been there before. You've eaten there. I know you've had a good time when you came out. We survived during the pandemic, and really, I've always had an interest in politics. You know, I've always loved hearing both sides of the aisle. I loved what goes on up in Capitol Hill. I think the foundation of our country history was something that I had a really, that was one of the only classes I was good in high school was history class. But just seeing how our country was founded, how it's run. And I got really disheartened during this pandemic. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about, the scientific nature of COVID or what have you. But I can speak as a middle-class business owner in New Jersey, what I felt. And I felt abandoned. I felt that we didn't get help. And I know they sent out PPE money and, they tried to do, programs that would keep us afloat. But at the end of the day, in speaking to other business owners, and I can only speak for myself, we felt that it was basically, here's what we have on the table. If you survive, you survive. If you don't, you don't. And best of luck to you. We'll see you on the other side of this.
Right.
And that's pretty much how I felt,
So I want to stop you there for a second because I think it's a unique viewpoint. I mean, you share it with a lot of people, but being on the front lines in that way, being a small business owner, and on top of it, being a restaurant owner. I mean, you talk about being absolutely in the middle of the fire of all of this. Yeah. So as you look at what happened and you look back, does it feel political to you, the decisions that were made, or does it feel like it was to protect us? And what would you have done differently?
I mean, there's two answers to that, right? So there's the Dave, not the candidate, who has an opinion. And then there's Dave, the candidate, who says, look, we have to do what we had to do. But at the end of the day, politics aside, I felt abandoned. And I think that's the piece of the puzzle that I think draws everyone together, whether they believe it was politically motivated or not, whether they were afraid of COVID or they were not, whether they're pro-mask, anti, whatever it is, it all drew it together because whether they were Democrat, Republican, or any of the other things that I just listed, people felt abandoned. People felt alone. There's businesses that were way busier and better and more staples in the community than my business was, but they were run by older people, or they were run by smaller families that weren't able to keep up with the times. The only reason we survived is because I am, a younger guy who was able to adapt to the technological side of my business, right? We were never known for takeout, but we became a takeout spot. We were never known for outdoor dining, but we became an outdoor dining spot. We built a whole patio outside. We brought in plants and live music, and we did lights, and we did whatever we had to do. But there were people who just didn't have that energy, didn't have that know-how, and they closed up. And I actually we started like a small business coalition in South Plainfield where my business was, where I went to other local businesses and said, hey, give me some of your information. I know you're hurting. Here's what I'll do. When people come and see me, I will give them a flyer to go and see you, to support you as well. And we had about 5 or 6 businesses. I mean, I feel like a lot of people were either A, afraid to, talk to other people, or B, they just weren't interested. But we had, anywhere, it started with 6 people. We ended up getting to like 10 to 15 businesses where, again, you would come see Dave at El Toro, and I would hand you a business card to go and see the dry cleaner up the street. The dry cleaner would then send you to the hair salon. The hair salon would then, and then it just kind of, we needed to work together. And that is basically where the story ended for Dave, just the restaurateur entrepreneur. And that's where Dave, the people's politician, the not your typical politician story began. Because I wanted to represent these people that felt alone, that felt unheard, that either didn't have because again, and this, you speak to so many people who are running, it takes a lot of guts to put yourself out there and say, I am running. And it takes even more to say, I'm running as a Republican in New Jersey. Right.
True. Yeah. True.
But there's people who think like us. There's people who want their ideas heard, that want to feel represented, and they're not. And again, we had the regulations, we had the shutdowns, we had you can't have 25% of more people in there. You have to close at 10 because at 10:01, COVID is extra deadly. And there were so many hoops that we jumped through. But at the end of the day, it didn't make sense to me because my restaurant is, about 5 minutes away from, Walmart, Home Depot, Target. Those places were popping. They were busy. And I said, how is it that, I can't keep, my restaurant that has 30 tables safe and let it operate as is, but Walmart can see thousands of people every day using the same pin pad, walking in and out of a building. So I really wanted to get involved and work for the people, because while I'm not a scientist, I'm not, I can't help with figuring out how to fix COVID. I do believe my expertise and what I wanted to bring to town was not only my ability of adaptation, but new ideas and how we're going to move forward. And I said this at my debate, which we'll talk about a little more, but my main concern is like, what is going to be your goal as a councilman as far as COVID? And I said, well, we have plenty of people figuring out vaccines and masking and how we can get numbers down. My goal is to work through this, because at the end of the day, I don't believe that COVID is going to ever go. We're never going to get to 0 cases. That's just an unrealistic number. It's going to be a part of our daily lives. But as somebody who not only, and I might mention, if you don't know this, not only did my business make it through COVID, but we actually made it more profitable during COVID because of our ability to work with the community. So adaptation, survival, and growth. I want to bring that to the town and work with people for that.
Well, it's an amazing story, because out of the ashes of COVID is really what inspired you, as I'm hearing you say this, for your candidacy, and using all that you learned and really tapping into who you are in terms of being creative and adaptive, as you say, and reaching out to the community. And as you look at East Brunswick, you grew up there, you've been there your entire life. How has it changed, and what are the needs now today? Where are people hurting in East Brunswick as you walk around and talk to everybody?
Yeah, so, they will like to tell you that East Brunswick is a blue town. And if you do look at the voting record, if you look at the elected officials, we have 5 council seats. All 5 council seats have been Democrat controlled for the last 5 to 6 years, as well as the mayor. And we haven't had a mayor that was on the Republican side since 92. We had a guy who was Democrat, then he flipped, but as an elected Republican, it's been over 25 years. And everybody that I talk to, because I know that the Republicans in this town are outnumbered, we have to go and speak to independent voters. We have to go and speak to Democrat voters. And at the end of the day, my campaign card, I don't have one here, but on the back of it, right at the top, it's my tagline, which is about putting people over politics. And when people get past, because believe it or not, I know you might not agree with this, but as soon as you say you're a Republican, you're either going to get the door slammed or people are immediately turned off from you. But if you can get, it is. But if you can get through that initial, I don't talk to Republicans, and actually have a conversation, you'll realize that we all are agreeing on the same thing. And on a town council level, the party line stuff that we see up at Capitol Hill being argued on a daily basis does not affect us here. We're talking about people they're hurting. Their taxes are high. Property tax, Sales tax, I know we don't control that, but the property tax is a huge issue here. The roads are a huge issue here. Overdevelopment is something that I've been on. They like to use redevelopment because it sounds nice, it sounds shiny, but when you look at the plans, it's about urbanizing, it's about building apartments, it's about commercial retail space. And I can tell you, as somebody who ran a business and saw what happened during the pandemic, a lot of these big retailers realize they don't need brick and mortar stores to survive. You know, they can do everything online. They can do things through Amazon. They can deliver straight to your house at a fraction of the cost, and they don't need to hire employees or have a space or pay rent and utilities. So my goal and what I've been speaking on with the people, which majority of them agree with, regardless of party, is about bringing back that family aspect to our town, right? I got called nostalgic during my debate by one of the moderators because I, missed the days where, I guess. Well, that's my back. Right here is my backyard. And across the street, when I moved here 20 years ago from Queens, we had cows that lived across the street.
Oh, wow.
That was a huge difference for me when a month prior to that, we were living in Queens and I was across the street from the train station. So to see cows, I'm not saying we're ever going to bring back the cows, while I would advocate for it if I win. There was this safe haven atmosphere. There was this suburban, gem that we found in the middle of nowhere. And right now it's being overdeveloped. We used to have farms. We used to have, these there's a lot of deforestation. There's a lot of roads being built. And I get it, times change, but majority of people are agreeing with those first three issues, like I said, which is their quality of life, their taxes, and the fact that the redevelopment is overdevelopment.
Overdevelopment,
and the last and most important point that I make to a lot of people is there is no balance of power. Now, as someone who is proud to be a Republican, I would tell you that I would not want my town to be all Republican, because then at the end of the day, what do you get? You get one-sided rule. You have politicians who become lazy because they control everything, and you're not hearing all of the residents. And at the end of the day, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, the point of becoming an elected official is to represent the people. And I think they forgot that.
Well, you've painted the picture of East Brunswick changing from cows in your backyard to now really being overdeveloped. And I think so many areas in this state are facing the same issue. You talk about taxes. You talk about things that really, should party even matter? I mean, this is really about your quality of life. And when we talk about politics being local, I think it's very important for people not to get caught up on the blue, on the red, but on the ideas and on the person behind the ideas, and understanding how you want to live in this town, what East Brunswick needs. Because if you wake up 10 years from now and it's so overdeveloped and the classrooms are crowded and it's all different from what you remember, nostalgia isn't such a bad thing anymore now, is it? There are some things we can hold on to.
I agree. And that's the thing that we're seeing, is that I believe there is a wave happening, right? And I know you've spoken to a lot of them, but I have a lot of friends who don't live in East Brunswick, but are running for positions in other parts of New Jersey, right? We have somebody who is in my backyard. We have the Darius Mayfields up north. You have the Billy Preppas. You have these people who woke up. They're not. And again, my Instagram following handle is, for anyone who wants to follow it, is not your typical politician. And I live that, because I'm not. I'm covered in tattoos. I have long hair and a beard. I ride a motorcycle. I own a vegan restaurant. Like, I'm not a politician. But we all forgot that at the top of our Constitution, it says the three most important words in our history, which is that we, the people.
Right.
It's not we, the select few, we, the privileged, we, the ones who have connections in our family. And we got away from that. Our country was founded on farmers and settlers.
That's right.
Before George Washington was George Washington, he was just, a colonist. He was just a guy that had an idea. And once people get back to that, and we're seeing that, and they don't want you to see that, is that now that I feel like majority of that political hype that was in the last election has settled down, people are coming back to the center. People are coming back to the table and realizing that, look, we may never agree on our two issues, but if we don't come to the table and discuss them, nothing's ever going to get done. And that's pretty much what I want to bring to the table.
speaking of that, you recently had a debate.
Mm.
How would you characterize that, and how would you differentiate yourselves from the competitors in that debate?
Oh man, I don't even know how you could characterize it, to be honest. And this is not an attack. I went there the same way I came to this debate, bottle of water and, my suit jacket. And I went and I spoke to the residents of East Brunswick about what I love about this town, what I don't like about this town, and how I can fix it, how I can help move forward. And my competitor read off, if you've ever seen like a Jen Psaki press conference, the binder with the Post-it note tabs labeling you on what idea. And every time a question was asked, we flipped to that page and we read it from top to bottom. It wasn't even talking points. It was, I'm going to read this whole paragraph. And the truth is, and I shared this with you before we went live, was that I shared my debate for everyone to watch in East Brunswick, whether you were a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. And my competitors haven't shared it. And because I truly believe they are still out, they're outdated, right? They are believing that people are still just going to go out, punch that party line, and keep it moving. And if people that are waking up, which I believe they are, actually saw the contrast between me and my opponent, they probably wouldn't be so quick to punch that party line and be like, no, that's not acceptable anymore. It's not acceptable for somebody to come in and read a script, because at the end of the day, it's not heartfelt. It's what the machine has told me to say, and I'm going to say it and then get out of here. Yeah. And, we talked about real issues in town. We talked about the fact that the guy I'm campaigning against literally took last year's campaign to the T. And I'm not even kidding you. I've had this conversation to the T. They took the palm cards from the two guys who ran last year, dusted it off, put his name at the top, and are passing it off to the people of East Brunswick like this is new stuff. They're talking about the businesses they brought. They're talking about the roads they paved. And this is the same stuff that was ran on last year. And they're playing. And there's no real better description to say is they think the voter is dumb. Right. And I don't. I think the voter is essential. I think the people of my town, regardless of party, are essential to making our town operate. But if they're not given all of the information, how can they make an informed decision?
Absolutely. It's time for change. East Brunswick is not the only town that feels that. And I believe you'll see more voters this year than you ever have. People finally realizing that they can make a difference, stepping up. And just to everyone listening, remember, early voting starts this year on October 23rd. Yep. So that's new for New Jersey. It's not something we've done before. And also then, of course, we have Election Day on November 2nd. So, David, you are a different kind of candidate. And you are right. We are seeing this at every level in this state and in this country. And it's frankly very exciting because it's the people's candidates who are finally saying, I didn't want to have to do this, but I can do this. I will do this.
I never had an aspiration to be a politician. I always I enjoyed the Thanksgiving, banter back and forth the table, talking about what we saw in the news, but I never ever thought that I would do it. And I've had this conversation. I will say that I'm learning firsthand, and I think that I'm giving a lot of information to the people who may want to run in the future about what to expect. Look, I've lived here for 20 years, and nobody ever really cared who I was until I decided I was going to run for office. And then before you know it, there's people looking at what you did 12 years ago, talking about you as a person, attacking your restaurant. We just talked about how I survived through the pandemic. We have people who've never been to my restaurant leaving bad reviews strictly because of my party line. And it's sad, but at the end of the day, we have a new group, right? And I make this joke all the time. I'm proud to be a Republican, but the GOP is outdated, right? We call ourselves, and I'm trademarking this now, but it's the grand new party. And there's a lot of candidates who are getting involved with this idea, right? Of new ideas, new representation, and a new direction. Nothing wrong with being conservative, but we need to have a new direction with our party, especially in New Jersey. And, the people are seeing this, and hopefully, come 2022, 2024, more people like myself, like yourself, put their name in that hat and say, I want to run. But it won't happen. And I'll stop what I'm saying with this. Last year, East Brunswick, we've actually registered 2,000 more Republicans between 2020 and now, which is amazing. And I'm proud of that. But last year we had 8,000 registered Republicans in town. Can you take a guess at how many voted during the presidential election?
No clue. Half?
3,000, not even half.
Gosh.
30%, not even of our voters went out. And the people in my town who ran for the position I'm in only lost by 2,000 votes.
Right.
So
it makes all the difference.
It makes the difference. So when people think my vote doesn't matter, my vote doesn't matter. Your vote absolutely matters.
100%. It absolutely does. You're right, Dave. It absolutely matters. We can't stop believing that it does. So, Dave, how do people help you? How do they find out more about where you're going, events, contribute, door knocking? Give them all those details.
So you guys, my name, David Herrera. You can follow me on Facebook, on Instagram. It's Not Your Typical Politician. We are, again, the donating is great, but honestly, donating your time helps me more. We're going door knocking. I've single-handedly been to almost 4,000 homes in East Brunswick, and that's not even scratching the surface. We have 17,000 homes in this town. If you can donate a few hours of your time and come knock with me, if you see my posts on Facebook, again, share them with your friends. We've had people like yourself. We met through Facebook just from you seeing some of my stuff, and we're not even in the same town. So those shares, those likes, those comments, they really do help get the message out. And I honestly, regardless if people can help my campaign, I think it's important that in this new direction that we're going in New Jersey with these younger candidates, that we have a tight-knit community. I shared this, that, a single voter is like a sheet of paper. And it's easily rippable. It's easily crumbleable. You can throw it away. But when you start stacking paper together, it becomes very hard to rip. And I think that's what we need to do in New Jersey, whether you believe in medical freedom, whether you believe in the Constitution, whether you believe in whatever it is you believe in. We need to band together and show that this is a movement that isn't going away. It's not a fly-by-night type of thing.
Yeah.
And more people will get involved and vote ultimately.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely seeing that change, and it's only going to get more. And as we close, I'll just read you this post from someone watching. If I lived in his district, he would have my vote. Love his energy and passion for small business. So you're definitely an exciting candidate. We need people to help. Anyone listening who knows people in East Brunswick, and nothing replaces door knocking. It's the best tool that we have. You can't recreate that wheel. We got to talk to people face to face. So if you could help Dave go out and talk to the residents of East Brunswick and get out to vote, guys. Don't forget, get out to vote. All this doesn't matter if you don't vote. Dave, thank you so much for coming on. We wish you the best.
Thank you for having me so much.
Absolutely. And guys, we will see you next week. Have a good night.